Well, good Sunday. This is Dr. William Painter. It's hot here. It's still like in the 90s and it's in the evening. I'm wearing my social distancing t shirt, which is a play off a very interesting band called Social Distortion. They have the same skeletons and things. And since COVID's on its way back, well, it seemed appropriate to wear somehow. This is the Proper 14, ninth Sunday after Pentecost, and the reading comes out of Luke, and is part of the travel narrative. It's called the travel narrative, where Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem. He's got his sights set on Jerusalem. There's no stopping him. That's what he's talking about. That's what he's doing. That's what he's focused on. So, and this reading is interesting. They're all interesting, but I particularly like this one. And it reminded me of a song, believe it or not. And this song, of course, is a John Prine song. It's called Dear Abby. And the story behind it is he was sitting in an Italian cafe reading a newspaper and reading Dear Abby's column. And it struck him that every answer she gave to every person that wrote was kind of the same answer. So he wrote a song about it. And it's called Dear Abby. And I'm going to sing it for you. All right. Let me get it squared up here. There we go. Dear Abby, my feet are too long. My hair's falling out and my rights are all wrong. My friends, they all tell me that I've no friends at all. Won't you write me a letter? Won't you give me a call? I'm bewildered. Bewildered, bewildered. Do you have no complaint? You are what you are and you ain't what you ain't. So listen up, Buster, and listen up good. Stop wishing for bad luck and knocking on wood. Signed, Dear Abby. Dear Abby, Dear Abby, my fountain pen leaks. My wife hollers at me and my kids are all freaks. Every side that I get up is the wrong side of bed. If it weren't so expensive, I'd wish I were dead. Signed, unhappy. Unhappy, unhappy. Well, you have no complaint. You are what you are and you ain't what you ain't. So listen up, Buster, and listen up good. Stop wishing for bad luck and knocking on wood. Signed, Dear Abby. Dear Abby, Dear Abby, well, you won't believe this, but my stomach makes noises whenever I kiss. My girlfriend tells me that it's all in my head, but my stomach tells me to write you instead. Sign, noisemaker. Well, noisemaker, you have no complaint. You are what you are and you ain't what you ain't. So you listen up, Buster, and listen up good. Stop wishing for bad luck and knocking on wood. Signed, Dear Abby. Well, Dear Abby, well, I never thought that me and my girlfriend would ever get caught. We were sitting in the back seat, just a shooting the breeze, with her hair up in curlers and her pants to her knees. Signed, just married. Just married, just married. Well, you have no complaint. You are what you are and you ain't what you ain't. So listen up, Buster, and listen up good. Stop wishing for bad luck and knocking on wood. Signed, Dear Abby. Okay. Let me put the axe up, and I'll catch you on the flip side. Back on the flip side. Dear Abby, stop wishing for bad luck and knocking on wood. Don't you know people like that? You know. So let's get our gospel reading for the day and the week. It comes from Luke chapter 12, verses 32 to 40. Do not be afraid, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Sell your possessions and give alms. Make purses for yourselves that do not wear out, an unfailing treasure in heaven where no thief comes near and no moth destroys. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Be dressed for action and have your lamps lit. Be like those who are waiting for their master to return from the wedding banquet so that they may open the door for him as soon as he comes and knocks. Blessed are those slaves whom the masters find alert. When he comes, truly I tell you, he will fasten his belt and will have them sit down to eat, and he will come and serve them. If he comes during the middle of the night or near dawn and finds them so, blessed are those slaves. But know this, if the owner of the house had known at what hour the thief was coming, he would not have let his house be broken into. You must be ready, for the Son of Man is coming at an unexpected hour. It's the end of the gospel. This is, as I mentioned earlier, is part of the travel narrative where Jesus is on his way to Jerusalem, and it's quite extensive in Luke. And this is one of those passages where, I was looking at what other pastors say about it and so on, and they're like, oh, this is a recipe. This is a recipe, as if Jesus ever gives anybody a recipe at all. Wouldn't it be nice if Jesus said, yeah, do this? Well, I don't know. Frankly, I think we'd probably ignore that too. But what he says here is, he always starts off, do not be, or he does not, but when something is about to be scary, like an angel of the Lord appears, the first thing they always say is, fear not. Don't be afraid. It's okay. And in this case, this use of the term don't be afraid, do not be afraid, means not just fear right now, but a persistent fear, a persistent anxiety, something that never goes away. We call it generalized anxiety, right? And I certainly suffer from it from time to time, probably more times than I'd like to admit, where I'm just worried that something bad's going to happen. And I have to tell myself, stop worrying. You're wasting your time. You're wasting your life. You're wasting your emotions and so on. But what really brings me back to reality is the fact that Jesus says, don't be afraid, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. Wow. Wow. Isn't that amazing? It's his pleasure to give you the kingdom. There you go. And so don't worry about this material stuff. Don't worry about having a big house and a fancy car. And don't worry about your treasures. Sell them all. Give it to the poor. And make purses for yourselves that do not wear out. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And I just love that phrase to death, because I think about my own life and where my treasures are. Well, my treasures are in the next room. My wife, my partner, my child, my son, my child in Omaha. These are my treasures, and that's where my heart is. My heart is with them. And I'm not as good a Christian as I ought to be, because I ought to have more treasures, right? I'd have more treasures like that. This evening we had a woman come over, a friend of ours, and very dear. I don't see her enough. We don't get to see her enough. I've often had sort of fantasies that let's just buy a big house and we can all live together. Of course, nobody wants that except me. I think it'd be great. But we sat tonight, and I made dinner, fried chicken and gravy and mashed potatoes. You can't get more traditional than that, right? She's not a culinary explorer, so to speak. She likes pretty, predictable palate. And I'm like, God, what am I going to make for her? Oh, fried chicken and mashed potatoes and gravy. Well, who doesn't like that? vegetarians, but she's not. Neither am I. And so that's what we had, and I put a lot of effort into the fried chicken because there's a million ways to ruin chicken as you fry it, and I was worried about it, and I kept telling myself, "Don't worry, don't be so afraid." And this woman has experienced one of the worst things you can experience, and that's the death of a spouse, unexpected, as in bam, and it's been very hard for her. And she is still grieving even after 2 years. And she will continue to grieve. And there is nothing I can do about it. There is nothing I can do to mitigate that, to alleviate that, to do anything at all. I can do nothing to make that go away in her heart and in her mind. And I worry over it. I worry over her. And yet I know that there's no reason for us to fear. And the passage before the one we read today is the lilies of the field, or the ravens in the air, and they don't worry about food. They don't worry about who's going to take care of them. They don't work for their food. Lord, God takes care of them, and God takes care of all of us. And I know, and that is not a Panglossian statement, that all things are for the best, because we know that's not true. Not all things are for the best. We are here and we suffer, and it's painful. But we always must keep in our hearts that the kingdom is ours just for the taking. And he tells the story about the master coming, and so this is a little context. When they got married, the bridegroom would go and fetch the bride and bring her back to a household where the servants are waiting. And they're never really quite sure when he's going to come, but they know he's coming. And they've got to stay awake. They got to keep the lamps lit. They got to be ready for him, for them. And in this case, the master comes into the house and he tells them, go sit at the table, and he serves them. He serves them. And this is the upside down world I mentioned before that Jesus brings to us. The inside out, upside down, whatever you want to call it, where masters serve the slaves, where we love our enemies, where the meek shall inherit the earth. I mean, this is that world. And you can't claim to be a Christian unless you really believe that is the case. I have no patience, sympathy, though I should, for pastors who get rich in these mega churches, selling an idea that once I sat down with a pastor, and I was considering joining his church, and I said, I'm really done with organized religion. I pastored a church, and I thought I did a good job, and no one thanked me, and no one thanked me for it. And in fact, they thought I probably shouldn't be doing that anymore, because I was saying, get out of the church, stand up. You can't work for Jesus with your hands folded. Okay, get up off your knees, unfold your hands, and go outside, and let's go feed people. Let's clothe people. And we set up a thrift store where you could come in and shop for clothes, and you didn't have to buy them. You just took them. So you felt like you were shopping, gave you the dignity of a shopper. We set up a food bank, food pantry. We didn't actually set it up, but by golly, we kept it going. And we set up a fund to help people pay their utility bills. It was not unusual at all. I was the president of the Ministerial Association. Not all unusual for me to get a phone call saying, I can't pay my utility bills. They're going to cut my electricity off, and I've got babies, and I've got this, and I've got that. And, we live in a very cruel society where if you don't have the money, you don't count. And so we had a fund, a utilities fund. I can't remember what we called it, but it was just for occasions like this when someone couldn't meet their utility bill, and we'd pay it. We try to get other kinds of help from them. We get them into some kind of social services, and we do all try to do as much as we could through other agencies. But at the end of the day, we're just happy to cut a check to the utility company. And now they kept coming back. Of course, they couldn't keep coming back to the trough. What we tried to do is set them up so that it doesn't happen again. And I thought we did a good job. When I left that with a bit of a bitter taste in my mouth, I thought, well, what's the purpose of these churches if not to do what we were doing? I had one member of the congregation says, you don't want to get clothes. People donate clothes, they're going to have lice in them. And so we mustn't do that because lice. And, we took in so many pounds of clothes and none of them had lice in them. He just didn't want to do it. He just think we should be doing it. And he never came back to church. And so I was talking to this pastor about why they be like that. And are they like that in your church? Because I don't need that. And he said, most of the people who come to church want to be told that they're doing the right thing. Well, golly me, that was the opposite. I always had to kind of stop myself because I was one of those finger waggers, do more, do better, do more, do better. And I would show videos of the racist babies, the racist young children wanting the white doll, not the black doll, and even the little black kids wanted the white doll, not the black doll, and they ask them why. It's because the white doll's pretty and the black doll's ugly. And just to try to show them, impress upon them about how prevalent and insidious racism was. And in talking about miracles, I said, we have miracles. You don't have to worry about Moses in the Red Sea. We have miracles every single day happening around us all the time. I mean, and I showed them a video of the gorilla and the basketball court. And I don't know if you've seen this or not, but it's about focused attention. And the video says, hey, watch these people pass this ball around, this basketball, and count the number of times the white team passes it. There's like a white team and a black team, white t-shirts and black t-shirts. And so most people watch very closely and count, the number of times. And at the end they say, well, if you counted 10 or whatever the number is, you're correct. But did you notice the gorilla? And in fact, what happens is that while you're watching these guys pass this ball around, a man in a gorilla, or somebody in a gorilla suit, walks across, stands right in the middle, waves his arms, and walks off. And 70%, more than 70%, of the people who watch that video don't ever see the gorilla. And I showed it to the congregation, and they were like, what gorilla? And I rolled it back away. And they were shocked. Absolutely shocked they couldn't see the gorilla. Most people don't see the gorilla. Most people are not mindful enough to see the miracles around them, the kingdom around them, because their heart is where their treasures are, and their treasures are in their back pockets. And so this gentleman, this pastor, and I think a lot of him. I think he's a good man. And I think he's done a lot of good things. To tell me that, well, they just want to hear that they're doing the right thing, I couldn't do that. And here we have Jesus. He never tells people what they want to hear. Okay? And he tells these stories, about be ready all the time. He doesn't say, oh, the Son of Man is going to return on this date in this year or whatever. He says, be ready all the time. And nobody wants to hear that because that means you're perpetually vigilant. And nobody wants to hear the meek will inherit the earth. They want to know that the powerful will inherit the earth. The white people will inherit the earth. They want to hear stuff that makes them feel like they are correct. And Jesus never did that. Jesus was always saying, he was always throwing the money changers out of the temple and whipping them with his whip and not telling people what they wanted to hear, but telling them the truth. And so Dear Abby is a wonderful example of people complaining about their stomach making noises every time they kiss, or their I guess my favorite's the last verse, because it's a bit of a surprise. Just married, and they all have complaints. They're all complaining about themselves, and she says to them, you have no complaints. You are what you are, and you ain't what you ain't. So listen up, Buster, and listen up good. Stop wishing for bad luck and knocking on wood. And I use that phrase fairly frequently. Stop wishing for bad luck and knocking on wood. I guess the point of this sermon is Jesus never tells us what we want to hear. Jesus tells us what we must hear. We must listen. And we must not be afraid, because if you're afraid, you don't have much faith. If you have a lot of faith, then there's no reason for you to be afraid. I was really scared, worried about finances or something, and I kept telling myself, let it go, let it go, let it go. It's going to work out. You've not done anything wrong. You're not being punished. The Protestant God is in heaven not punishing you for some and you know what? It's worked itself out. And all that worry and all that fret and all that fear was meant for nothing. It just made more gray hairs on my head. That's all it did. It didn't produce anything else. So don't be afraid. Fear not. Have faith. Wear a mask. Socially distance. Get vaccinated. Get boosted. And I'll see you in 3 weeks. God bless.